Good evening. It's Monday, the 11th of December. It's what time is it? I can't see. I need my glasses these days. It's 1904, and I'm here at home, and I've arranged a chat with another gutsy woman, and I'm really pleased that tonight I've got Louise Collins from Liberty Tactics with me. Lou, thank you for joining me.
Hello, Brian. It's just like old times.
I know. Well, look, let's shock the listeners a little bit. How long is it that we've known each other now?
I started with the column in 2011.
Was it really 2011?
2011, so it's a long time. It's a
Yeah.
long time. 12 years, 12, coming up 13 years, I suppose. Is that
And
right? About
you've
12
been
years.
doing a lot of things, Lou, and you're still here. You're one of the fighters, which is why I wanted to get you into this little series that I'm doing on gutsy women, because I think you are gutsy. And so I thought it would be really good if we had a chat, because there's a lot to talk about. We've covered a lot of ground together. But I wonder whether you would, just to start off, share with the audience a little bit about yourself. Because, am I right? When I first met you, you were already established with, was it Dartington Radio? Is that what it was called?
Found up. Well, I wouldn't say I was established. I had this huge awakening in 2008, and I just went full force down the rabbit hole. And I came across it was Sky Channel 200, was it? Sky Channel 200, controversial TV. And I was watching this presentation, this esoterical presentation with a gentleman. I thought, this guy's great. I waited till the end. His name was Ian R. Crane. So I just started linking with a few people. I joined Facebook for that reason. And somebody mentioned this Ian R. Crane lives in Devon. So I hunted him down and we met for coffee and we started talking. At the time, I was doing a business course, and they said to me on the course, why are you going to be doing this when you've got this passion? Why don't you start a blog and take this further? And I said, oh, no, I'm no writer and I don't like speaking in front of people. Anyway, move on. Out of the blue, I had a call from somebody who was on the course to say there's a radio slot going at Sound Art. And I'm like, I'm nowhere near ready for this. I've never done. And the first show was just, I don't know where it is, and I hope it never surfaces. It was
Well,
so bad.
hang on a minute. Don't push it into the bin that quickly. So just to get this out into the open. So you were doing a course. Somebody says that Sound Art's got a slot, and Sound Art was was an FM channel just
It
outside.
was an FM all around South Devon, so it went down as near as Plymouth and up towards Exeter.
Yeah. So
So it's an FM show, so people could be sitting in their, this show, you weren't preaching to the converted. And I was so new at all of this. I didn't really know what I was doing, but then I met Ian Crane and I told Ian Crane what I was doing. And he said he would come on the show. And that's what kind of started getting it moving. He then offered me a job on the side because Edge Media was going to be taken down. Did I want to bring in the advertising for Edge Media and earn a little bit of commission because they were trying to save it because they were taking it down? So that's what I did. I did that and I did the radio shows. And then I said I'd been watching Bill Maloney's, and my thought when I started seeing the sun, seeing Satan, and some of it, like, how does this guy sleep? How can you deal with this children issue day in and day out? It's horrendous. So I turned to Ian one day and I said, why isn't Bill Maloney on Edge Media? He said, if you can get Bill Maloney, then do it. So that was my mission. And I did. I met with Bill and they were sorting stuff out between him and Ian. And then there was the Edge Media Christmas party in 2010. And myself and others were all invited up there. And it was a bit of drama because the host of the show decided to dress Jimmy Savile. And this Jimmy Savile hadn't been exposed at that point.
yeah, just put that
And there
in
was
the right context, I think, for the audience, that the person um hadn't he wasn't really up to speed with the rumors that were beginning to surface at that
no,
stage. And so he adopted the Jimmy Savile persona as "I'll fix it for you." So he did it
Yeah.
really with a
He had no idea.
humoristic.
He had absolutely no idea because it
Yeah.
wasn't out there about Jimmy Savile. It was just rumours within, the people who were focusing on the children. So that was a bit of a drama. Then I met Mr. Brian Garish and I invited him on my show
And I
and we
remember, I
did.
remember doing that, Lou. I remember coming along to Dartington and coming into your radio studio setup, which was also very new for me to see that sort of thing. And and we did an interview.
And it went crazy. It went crazy. I think we were focusing a lot on the Holly Gregg issue. We talked quite a bit about Robert Greene and it went crazy.
Yeah. Now there's
And
there's a
then,
funny thing, Lou, because this morning I was sifting through some emails looking for a particular email, which I didn't find, but up popped an email from Robert Greene from 2018 in which he was basically talking about blackmail in the political system, and saying that an MP who'd offered to help Robert in his campaign to get justice for the Down syndrome girl, Holly Gregg, the MP had been warned off by his colleagues who said to him, "Well, you've had a little bit of an indiscretion." I think he'd had an affair. I think that's what it was. You've had a bit of an indiscretion. And these things can be really bad when they come out. I mean, they can affect your wife badly and your family. And, but if you don't have to do anything. If you don't help Robert Greene, then probably everybody's going to be happy. So that was the email I found this morning. And to me, what an amazing man Robert Greene was, because he stuck with that girl and he stuck with the story and he tried to get justice for her.
he went in prison for it. And he ended up for it.
Your sound art radio, it took off for you, and you got more and more listeners, and that
Yes.
should have generated for you bigger things. But how did the local radio station react when you started to talk about
Well,
some controversial
it
stuff?
did. It did because I came down to help at the UK column and I thought we are just helping. And then all of a sudden, I after the Robert Greene interview, I was trolled. I had no idea what I was getting into. I was so green at all of this. I had no idea. I interviewed Robert Greene and I thought, the whole idea was if my daughter came to me and said she'd had shocking things done to her, I would want the police to investigate. We had mentioned no names. Well, the attack was full force and it frightened the life out of me. I didn't understand. And I can always remember you always saying to me, you're over the target, don't get involved, but you couldn't help it. And it was horrible. And the show went on for years. I was doing the column, and on a Monday I would do the sound art show. And then one day, I think it was Max Egan I had on, and we're talking all about different subjects. And I think the Pride event had gone on in Totnes, and there was banners up all over the town, bridges not borders, just all the nonsense of the progressive left going on. And we were talking about that. And then I was due to go for my show the following week. And I got a phone call for the guys who run it and said, I'm too dangerous to have on air and that I would need somebody in the studio with me all the time to monitor what I'm saying. Now, apparently, people had actually emailed in saying how good my show was, but 3 Totnes people had phoned in complaining, and I basically got kicked off. I got kicked off sound art
It is
because I was too.
incredible, isn't it? Because it wasn't as if you were there and you'd been mediocre. You'd been there and you'd built up an audience, and people were paying
Huge
attention
audience
to the.
taken down. We'd get taken down at 10 to 11. And the guys used to go, I don't believe this. We had Ike on the show. We had some really, really big name people come on that show. Yeah, then it was the column. And then things got too much for me. I went into this, I wanted to change the world because my children my kids, were missing out and everything, and I needed to get a proper job because I couldn't earn enough money. And now here they are. They're 22, and Jack's now 18. And Jack used to be a little primary school kid that I used to sometimes bring down to the column. So, I just needed to have a break, because dealing with the subjects that I never imagined I would deal with, after saying about Bill, how did he sleep? I'm full on anyway. Some of the cases that used to come into the column were horrific. And I remember one specific case, she said I wouldn't read that because, and I didn't, thankfully.
Yeah,
But
we
it's,
just had a bit more for for listeners. So I'll say for me, I'd been approached by a lady from South Wales who talked to me about what happened with her daughter when the daughter was sick, and she tried to get a diagnosis for her. The lady's name was Linda, and she'd said to me over the phone that I couldn't get a diagnosis for my daughter. She was in a lot of pain. And then social services got involved, and they tried to tell me that I was making it up. I was suffering from Munchausen by proxy. So I was getting pleasure out of living a life where I was saying that my daughter was unwell, but she was really unwell and in a lot of pain. And that mother eventually went to Florida in America and got a proper diagnosis from that American hospital. And her daughter had Zollinger's disease, which is multiple ulceration of the gut. But social services from Port Talbot took her from the hospital in Florida, flew her back to UK on a false passport. All of this was proven to me by the documents and the court documents that the mum showed me. And that was the first case for me where I started to understand some of the horrors going on in the family court system. Uh, and the next thing, just to join it together with you, Ian Crane invited me to do a talk on what was happening to children at a hotel up in the centre of Bristol. I think that was 2000 and
I think that was 2010, 2010, 2011.
yeah, I gave the talk. It was called Child Stealing by the State. And then what I say is my life was never the same again, because I was contacted by so many people talking about their stories. And those calls used to come into the column, and you took many of them. And my goodness, what a shock for the average person. You think you know the country you live in, you think you understand the justice system, you think that social services are there to help families, and then suddenly these incredible and often very harrowing stories come in, and you were hit by a lot of those. But you were very good at dealing with the
Yeah, it
families,
was
Lou.
it was there wasn't enough people to help. I'm this is this What these people are going through is horrific, and all you can do is sit there and listen, and try and think of who we can get these people in touch with, and what we can do. And it was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. But we had some good times.
We did.
We did have some good
Yeah, and we stuck with some of
times.
those people. We were able to help them by virtue of the fact that when they told us what had happened, we didn't run away, we didn't dismiss them. That was one of the horrible things that used to happen. People said, "Oh, this can't possibly be true." So we listened to them, and a lot of people who've been through bad times with the family system and social services have said to me that the fact that you and the rest of the team listened was a really
Yeah.
important thing for them.
It was frustrating because there weren't enough people around, and who can help these people, and you just wanted to help everybody, but it was chaos in the office at times. I mean, there was myself and you and Mike and Kate and Carol, and it would be just the phones going off the hook, and you were still doing the paper at that time, and we were in those little offices. But we had some good times. Bilderberg was a huge success. We went as Liberty Tactics and UK column, and we all smashed that. No, that was Watford, my hometown, and that was such a successful event. I mean, all of us were there from morning till 8 o'clock at night. Nobody else was. We got most of the photos out. It was a very, very good event. That, it was a disappointing that the
Yeah.
Sunday had to be turned into some sort of circus when the focus should have been on what was going on in that building. But it is what it is. But they, we had some very good, successful outings and talks, and we had some very good times. I met some amazing people.
So we did meet some amazing people. Lou, you've done all this as a single mum, and you've had to look after the children and run a house and try and earn money and things. And that's a lot of pressure for any woman. What do you think that you've got that's kept you fighting?
Well, it's children. There are children out there being trafficked, being abused in the most horrendous ways. And, these things that people say aren't real, these certain cult rituals, etc., they're very real. And I've seen and read things that no person should read about what goes on with these children. And I don't understand how. I know it's an uncomfortable subject for people to talk about. It's not like dinner time conversation. But the reason why this problem, I think, is still going on because there aren't enough people talking about it. Yes, it's horrible, but it's nothing to compared to what those kids are going to, you know? And that's what keeps me going. It has to stop. And like the mums of Wales, they're going to die on that hill, protecting the children. And now, because of them, it all makes so much sense, this whole agenda. I mean, we knew it was coming, but what's gone on in the last 3 years is full force, absolutely full force.
Yeah, and I certainly sense, and I know you do, and a lot of other people we talk to sense that within the system, and what do I mean by the system? Well, it's our government system, it's through the local authorities, it's through the education system, but there's somebody targeting children. There's somebody who is targeting our children with a malevolent intent. They they are keeping children ignorant in the quality of or via the quality of the education. That's one way you can look at it. But clearly on sexual matters, they're targeting young children.
I can remember doing a show at the Column with you, and we were covering a story where a young boy had sexually assaulted a young girl. And yes, people will blame the internet and people's access to internet, but that's when the education was kind of steep. They were pushing it. It was on the edges that they're learning about this stuff too young. Maybe this could have something. Why do they need these thoughts in their head? Let them get to puberty. It's crazy. But from all of this, from this journey, I ended up finding my faith, which is amazing, because Satan is real. And it's terrible to think there are a lot of people who don't believe in the New Agers. They fully believe in Satan, but they won't accept Christ, which is a bit of an insult, really, and it's a bit wrong if you're prepared to accept Satan. So I found my faith. So I'm still learning. I can't be challenged on it. I don't feel I'm up on it, but yeah, I found my faith.
That was a big step for you, Lou. And I was talking to you at the time when you were leading up to make that big decision. And you were baptized, and you are now a born again Christian. And do you feel that that's given you extra strength to stand up against some of these horrible things that you see?
1,000,000%. Definitely. Absolutely. We are living. I love I do read the Bible, and I also listen to the audio Bible, and I listen to people breaking stuff down. And what I realised is great. It's got everything in it. I mean, when I was at a private all girls Catholic school, and you'd have your RE lessons with the nuns, and we would just be giggling. We weren't paying attention. Thou, though, nothing went in. But now it's the greatest book in the world. It's got everything, and it just all clicked together, and it made sense. And the times we are living at, Sodom and Gomorrah, hello, that's where we are right now. And it's everything's in it. There's every answer to everything you can find there. And it's a prophetic book as well.
It's the most interesting subject. But I've just found it fascinating that over the last couple of years in particular, you can go to public events and you're meeting people and you got the opportunity to talk to them face to face. And the number of people that are clearly searching for answers and a question which I've talked about this quite a lot, but it's still relevant that people sort of say to you very carefully that, well, there's all this horrible politics going on. Do you think there's more to it than politics? And my answer was always yes. And then if they say, well, what do you think? And I say, well, it's a spiritual battle. For me, more and more and more people have got hungry for knowledge about what's really happening. And whereas if we go back, let's go back 15 years, if you tried to talk to people about this, the walls would go up, the shutters would come down. They didn't want to engage with anything that they thought was they could be as hard as saying preaching, but they just didn't want to know. Now I sense that a lot of people are hungry for answers in this area. They're looking for spiritual understanding and answers to what's really going on in the world.
I've had two very big American prophets come on the show, Julie Green and the lovely Deborah Williams, who I speak to regularly and we've become very close. And God sorted out the interview with me and General Flynn, like little Lou Collins interviews General Flynn. I mean, it was ridiculous, but that was all down to, that was God did that 100%. Like I woke up in the morning and I had just a voice, give him a nudge, because I was thinking, oh, I wonder if I've heard back from them, because I managed to dig out an email address from General Flynn from a company that he was used to direct, and the email worked, and he got back to me and he was delighted. He would love to come on the show and deal with his son. So I never got an email back after a week, and something told me in the middle of the night to message, just give him a nudge. And I said, look, I don't mean to hassle you, but I've just been woken up and God's told me I've just got to give you a nudge. So I have to do what the Lord said. God bless you. I really hope you get this. Kindest regards, Lou Collins. And then a few hours later, I had a return, pick a date, and he was only supposed to stay for half an hour, and he stayed for 1 hour and 7 minutes. That was amazing, but nobody saw it.
Yeah.
Because of the censorship.
Well, we can get on to the subject of the censorship, but yeah, this is the way it works, isn't it? When you start to go down this path, and can you have a conversation with God? I think you can. God can certainly talk to you in ways that are very unexpected, and they bring you down to earth pretty quickly. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
We've got quite a lot of UK column people that have asked us to talk more in this subject, and I've promised them that we will do this. I know Alex Thompson is very keen to engage in this area more. And so I think for 2024, we're certainly going to be having a look at what's we think is happening in spiritual terms and why people need to get right with God.
But when you start on the path for truth, it will one day only lead one way, to the truth, the light, and the way. I really believe that. When you start down the rabbit hole, yes, I know I was one of the Kundalini yoga and plant medicines, and we are one, but I got there eventually. But it was all part of my journey. But when you start on the path for truth, it will eventually only lead you down to one path. I really believe that. And I've seen a lot of people since I've been baptized. Other colleagues of mine have also started getting interested and asking questions and realizing, wow, this makes so much sense.
And Lou, how have you found people have reacted to you when you say now that you're a committed Christian?
Various. Some people are delighted. Other people have just fled, and I don't really hear from them. It's been a varied response. The Christian people I'm really lucky. I've made some amazing connections, mainly with American, actually, Christians, all born again Christians. And they have really, really helped me. And they'll just phone in and checking I'm okay, and they'll answer questions that I'm asking. And got the lovely Daisy's always at the end of the phone as well, who baptised me. So it's been a mixture, really, a mixture. They've either fled or been supportive. No around. Some people don't even believe it. So, I'm not perfect. I'm still messing up, and it's a work. I'm a work in progress at the moment, Brian.
Yeah. But you're a very brave lady, Lou, and that's why I've got you here as a gutsy lady, because you're absolutely self-made and you've gone through all the things that you've gone through. You've stuck with it. You've learnt some amazing things. You've shared a lot of tremendous information with people, and you've had to endure some pretty horrific pushback. Censorship we'll come on to in a minute, but you've endured all this. Now you've got some strength of faith, but you've been a tough cookie, and I think you should be proud of it.
I just wasn't expecting it. I went into this so naive. I was doing admin work. I taught kids how to ride horses because that's like my background, where I grew up around. Never any idea of doing this, never. And I still don't like speaking in public. I just see people and I just fumble my words, and I don't like it. I like doing my shows, the research. I think they're very important. But it's been really tough. I'm unemployable. I was trying to find some work through COVID. Obviously, never put a mask on my face, never stuck a stick up my nose, not once. Even walked around the stickers on the wrong way round in the supermarket. What rebel! And always paid in cash. But I'm basically the agency. I've never gone for a job interview and not got a job in the past. Never. So I was going to these jobs. No, no. And then the girl at the agency said, I shouldn't really say this, but it's your social media profile. You're unemployable with your far right opinions. So that was it, really. And then COVID, we had really bad time at the start of that nonsense. The person I was working for didn't pay me any furlough. And me and Jack were living on about £40 a week for a few weeks. And then out of the blue, Clive de Carl just phoned up to see how I was. And I just broke. I was broken, stuck here just in the middle of nowhere where nobody really liked me because I said about how did the dancing nurses have the time, and people from the village just, wow, the turnaround, that was amazing. And Clive de Carl literally said, right, you're coming to work for me. Go and get organic food, get everything that you and Jack need. You're coming to work for me. So he literally saved my life.
Put that in context for people.
Clive de Carl, if you don't know who Clive de Carl is, you go to clivedecarl.com or just search who he is. He is a natural health master. I'm not going to say doctor. He is a master. The people that I have seen cured, taken off pharmaceutical medications, turn their lives around. I mean, I'm prime example. He's amazing, and he's so kind. And he literally did. And everything, I used to be heavily asthmatic. I used to have the flu jab pre-waking up. I'd be hospitalized with tubes down my throat. And when I had my awakening, I chucked every medication. They gave me Prozac for the baby blues. So I chucked everything away all in one day. Still wasn't properly eating right. And then I met Clive, and well, that was it. And he's taught me so much that I can help. Richard Vobes was ill actually at the weekend. And I spent the whole probably Saturday night phoning around trying to get him medicines. Ended up speaking to a random lady who lived in Worthing who happened to have colloidal silver. So he's really taught me a lot, and he's such a kind person, and his knowledge, it's amazing. So yeah, Clive rescued me, and then we move on, and I have a friend on Facebook. I decided I was going to relaunch Liberty Tactics because I'd been off a while. I thought, let's do it. And it was coming up to the presidential election, it was probably about 2018, something like that. No, it wasn't. It was 2016. Sorry. And we decided to relaunch Liberty Tactics. And a friend who was actually at Bilderberg with us, Rick, he decided to come on board and be the producer, and Liberty Tactics came back. And say we interviewed General Flynn, so many big names. It was unbelievable. We had some really, really good shows. And yeah, there we are. And then out of the blue, a friend on Facebook contacted me and said, Lou, I want to hook you up with Catherine. She's doing amazing work, and it's what's going into the schools. So Catherine and I spoke, and we hit it off immediately. Her knowledge was incredible. You know, I was giving her information about stuff she was giving to me. She told me about what was going on in Wales. So we started doing a series of shows. Then I spoke to Kimberly. Wow. Kimberly Isherwood, Public Child Protection. She's such an inspiration and a breath of fresh air. And she made me, right, that's it. Everything is going into this subject. What is going, there is no time, you know, they're going to bring this in. There is no time. We have, this is what I need to focus on right now. That's what I did.
And you did a huge amount of work with Public Child Protection Wales.
Yeah, I think it was about 36 grand for them, I think, in the end.
And I spoke to Kim Isherwood at the weekend. In fact, I did a Gutsy Woman interview with her, and she specifically mentioned you and specifically said that, you know, in the beginning they weren't too sure how they were going to be able to do things because everything you want to do costs. And then you and other people got on board, and I also say that UK column gave Kimberly and PCP some exposure, and that ultimately helped some money come into their fighting fund. But
I contacted you, said, had you heard of them? You need to see this. Sent it to you, got you on the phone with Kimberly. And we then decided, how can we, you know, what can we actually do? So we organised the first podcast-a-thon, and a friend of mine who has a recording studios offered us the studios to record in. We were going to go 36 hours, and it was a huge success. We had a bit of a breakdown, myself and Catherine, after hour 25, I think, where we were just a bit delirious, but it was a huge success. And then we continued to do another two, one in Devon, and then the last one was down in Cardiff.
and that's another tremendous flag for you, isn't it? That you said, come on, let's do something about it. And you set that up and you brought a lot of money into them. And that has kept their initiative going for that group of mums and some men who have said, no, we're not going to sit back and allow our children to be sexualized. So your effort as a single mum yourself, with a lot of other things going on, made a huge difference to them. And what am I thinking? I'm thinking, we got another woman here who stood up to be counted. Because I'm being a bit tough on the blokes at the moment. Yes, there are a lot of men out there doing some things, but there are a lot of men out there who are not doing things, and they're hiding in the shadows, and they're letting women stand up to fight the battle. And I want to say to them, as not a big bloke myself, get your backsides out the shadows and start getting your faces above the parapet so that we've got some real strength in the movement to deal with these horrors that are attacking us and our children and the elderly people.
Honestly, when we were doing these podcast-a-thons, I just said, can you actually believe that we are having to sit here and beg people and stay up 36 hours to try and raise awareness of this subject? You know, I know it wasn't put out. I know people were having trouble getting lesson plans. They still are. But my question is, there's been enough now about RSE in the papers about what's going on. I don't understand where fathers are. You're handing your most precious thing, as young as 3, handing your child over to a person, telling your child that they have to be good, listen to what your teacher says, do as you're told, love you, off you go. And once in that classroom, that child is being exposed to the most horrific, almost pornographic material, then coming home, they can't tie their shoes, but they can choose their gender. I mean, the insanity. And what is so sad is we saw it coming years ago with what was going on in universities. I can remember you and I talking about it probably back in 2012, saying that what are coming out of universities now has got this progressive, this promotion of homosexuality, LGBTQ, and we said that, and it's here, and those students are now in the classroom pushing this nonsense down to your kids, and you can't say anything because the police will come knocking at your door for being homophobic. There is no need for our children to know this, and I know why they're doing it now to the younger ones, because some of the older kids aren't putting up with it. I think it was Turning Point UK put out an audio of a school in Suffolk or Essex where a teacher's having a go at a pupil because somebody's saying that they identify as a cat, and this girl is saying, no, you don't. There's two genders, and a teacher is screaming at this girl saying, how dare you be so rude, you're disgusting, what you're saying, there's only two genders. She goes, yes miss, there's two genders. So they're shoving it into these little kids when they don't know anything. I mean, and their minds suck it in like a sponge. It's criminal.
Yeah.
And then they've got adult entertainers, men dressed up as prostitutes going into libraries, and then we find out about the ADHD promoting a paedophile drag queen who got murdered in Cardiff, and ADHD is sharing the fundraiser on the actual ADHD page.
Well, I'm stuttering here because I deal with this subject and other subjects and I have done for a long time, but you still get to a point where you just don't know what to say in order to try and, get across to an audience. Are you aware what's actually happening? Do you understand what is actually being done?
Fathers should be at those gates. Like, I want to see the lesson content. And the fact that you can't remove your child from the lessons where it's going to be a whole school approach. This is dangerous. They are making our children stupid. They are sexualizing them. They are making children believe that men can have babies. They're doing this transition to little kids with no counselling. Years ago, before I worked at the column, when I was expecting Jack, I did a little bit of home care, and I had to go round to somebody who was on the mental health list, who, it was a 50-year-old bloke. If it was a woman, had the long hair, looked like it was a bloke, but he was waiting. He'd been waiting 5 years to even start the hormone replacement stuff. He had to go through all of this counselling because it was classed as mental health. And now look at what is going. Oh, it's a really dark agenda that is playing out right now, and it's a spiritual agenda, and people have got to wake up quick. And I know I've fallen out with a lot of people because I felt the Truth Movement weren't doing enough. There were no time for these kids. There isn't time. Their heads are being messed up every single day. This is serious.
Yeah, this is the key point, isn't it? That when the children's minds are gone, that generation is completely captured. From then on, it just gets worse and worse. And we've got this agenda which we can point a finger in the first place and say, well, this is coming through the education system in UK and our government is allowing this to happen. But you only have to dig a bit to discover that actually, no, these policies are coming overwhelmingly from the
absolutely.
UN.
I mean, I can remember the book when I first came to the column. You gave me Rules for Radicals, and it's playing out. It's playing out right now. Well,
Yes,
Saul
Alinsky.
who Barack Obama, he was Barack Obama's mentor, and then he dedicates the book to Lucifer. We're living in really bad times, and there is going to be a change. I totally believe it. I do totally believe it. I think 2024 is going to be really rough.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see all sorts.
Yeah.
But I do think when Trump comes back in, I think we're going to see a change very, very quickly. Remember, they had a 16-year plan, and Trump came and messed it up and started reversing stuff, etc. And look what's happened in these last 4 years at the speed they have turned this around. Within these last 4 years, Brian, it has been the absolute idiocracy of what is going on today has really been in the last 4 years. And I focus on America is because that's where it's a domino effect. It will come here. And you've got yourself and others focusing on what's going on in here on the UK. I'm focusing on America, and obviously their open borders with the kids and everything else. You know, that's something I follow. And obviously the Epstein thing, which I've been sort of like down rabbit holes now for years, even before his last arrest. I remember us talking about it back in 2011.
Yeah, and all the pieces have come together over that we seem to have a lot of, we have people at very high level in politics in countries around the world who have clearly been engaged in some very, very unsavory stuff, much of it connected with children.
Everything that we were saying back on Liberty Tactics and the shows about the people involved, and we were told we were idiots, and my shows were being blocked, they were taken down on Facebook. Do you know, 1 year I had 7 30-day bans in 1 year on Facebook, because and every single thing that we put out it's there, it's coming out, it's there. We were right all along. Everything that we were putting out back then was spot on. And
were you thrown off YouTube as well?
Yeah, years and years ago. Yeah. Thrown off PayPal. We were thrown off PayPal. I had weird thing. My bank got frozen one day out of the blue. The same day my bank got frozen and I couldn't get it out. So I found, it's frozen. Why is it frozen? Oh, we're legally obliged to check into people's accounts if there's 100 quid in there. Who's telling you? Who are you obliged to? It's my money that you're looking after and charging me to look after. Who? Tell me who. And the girl at the end of the phone, she couldn't answer the question. And then I got a letter that same day threatening for me to be evicted because I had to claim housing benefit during COVID, and they pay a month in arrears. So they put me in arrears, and I was trying to clear it up a little bit each month, which I was doing. And then they came at me for that. And then what was the other thing? There were 3 things that happened. Oh, my doctor phoned me up out the blue and said he'd no longer be able to prescribe me asthma inhalers because I was a safeguarding issue because I don't follow the NHS guidelines for asthmatic. That all happened one day.
As you're talking through this stuff, Lou, to me, this is the reality of where this country has got. It's not en route to this. It's got here where we're being dictated to by the NHS. Your GP is telling you what you can and can't do. We can't protect children in schools from people who want to sexually groom them, but you can have your GP phoning you up and saying what he is and isn't going to give you because of the policy which is coming through the NHS. And I still look out the window and I see people going past my house or people going past the UK column, and you want to open the window and shout, "Wake up!" Because this stuff is coming in so quickly now. But I just push the point that the policy that we see, things that you're describing happening here in UK, but they're happening in other European countries, they're happening in America. So we are seeing more and more clearly that these draconian policies, which are, I think, driving the world into a police state, these policies are being enacted in many, many different countries simultaneously. And that tells you that the power base is beyond the nation state. This is a global
coming into the country,
power base.
Undocumented. Now, down here in Devon, hand on my heart, I have not seen one family of immigrants down here. What I've seen is adult men, but probably between the ages of 20 and 40. There was one day I'd gone into Paynton, which has just been destroyed. It's tragic to think what Torbay used to be, and it is now, but that's another story. I'd got out, and there's a guy who sits out the shop with his Jack Russell, veteran, and I'd always go in and I'd get him a coffee and a pasty. And he's out there, and in front of me there are these three big guys, foreign. Apparently they were from Georgia, and they were in there with their mobile phones that they'd been given, asking them how they top them up. Meanwhile, we've got a British veteran sitting outside, and they're decked up in Nike and Adidas, and that's expensive gear. They're absolutely decked out in it. And they're all being put up at the really fancy Palace Hotel, where they get their 3 meals a night, 3 meals a day, heat, everything that they want. And we have a British veteran sitting outside the street with nothing. This is we're being invaded. They don't like us. They don't want us. They just want this one global government with mixed races, this diversity. And they don't want your everyday person who just wants to get on with their lives, be left alone, bring up their children, and just exist and have a happy life. They are doing, it's a total attack on humanity. That's what it is. Because these people, they're not humans. They're not.
I absolutely agree with that. We've got people operating at a global level through the World Economic Forum or these very big think tanks, even the G7 and all that series. We've got, people who are planning for what should happen to the world. They're not going to consult ordinary people. Davos, we've had Keir Starmer say, well, I'd rather be at Davos than in Westminster because in Davos I can get things done. It's just he's not bothering to tell the UK public what sort of things he wants to get done. And just to answer you on the subject of the immigration and the migration, of course, it was Sir Peter Sutherland who died a couple of years ago, I think it was. But in his heyday, he was ambassador for migration in the UN, and he's on public record as saying that basically he's talking about him and his chums, we need more mass migration in order to break down the homogeneity of European nation states. So he was saying very clearly that migration was going to be used as a weapon to destroy the base of nation states, the sovereignty of nation states in Europe, and indeed further afield. And so we got the veteran you're describing on the doorstep. He's suffering. You've got the men. Where should those big men be? They should be in their own country, supporting their own families and looking after their nation state. But they've been forced out of their own country or enticed out. And everywhere we see this suffering.
Well, are these people military? Are these people, a military force coming in? I just want to just go back to, we're saying everything's collapsing. In Torquay, which used to be famous for ballroom dancing, it was known as the English Riviera. Torquay, on the high street, just off the high street at the back, where there's a little walkway where people park their cars, there is a swingers club that is open 24 hours a day. Down the side of the swingers club, there's a stairway that the kids go down to cross to go to the school on the other side of the high street. There's no mainstream shops anymore. Pop-up charity shops everywhere. You have got heroin addicts or junkies in broad daylight down some other little side roads doing their business. It's horrific. It's shocking when you think of what Torquay used to be like. So they have absolutely destroyed it. Absolutely. It's tragic. I mean, council leaders, these people need to go.
They've destroyed it, but one of the things that I feel I always need to say is, but we've allowed it to happen. Because if enough people had stood up and say, no, no, you don't, this is not going to happen, it wouldn't have happened. But too many people, including, I'm going to say myself, many years ago, because I wasn't seeing things properly and I certainly wasn't thinking about things properly, we said nothing and we let it happen.
All I keep saying to people, and I keep asking, I want to get it, I will get it set up as soon as Rick can spare some time. We've got an election coming up. Now, unfortunately, at this point in time, we vote to see who's going to represent us. I'm asking everybody, pick up the phone and ask your MP, how do they feel about the RSE education? It's the only question you need to ask. If they support it, you know that that person representing you is saying that it's okay to groom school children as young as 3 and indoctrinate them into this trans agenda. And we need to really start making a little bit of a picture around the UK in each constituent of what MPs support this, because they're representing you. They work for you. So I'm just asking people, can you do that? And if you can do that, can you email me and let me know? lou@libertytactics.co.uk. Let me know what your MP feels about it. I wrote to mine. He wouldn't answer the question, never answer the question. But in other words, he did support it. He was just going along with it. But he is in Totnes, so we have to expect that. But that's the way. That's the only way we're going to change this at this current time, is to vote the people who are representing us out. That's my opinion. It's the only option we have right now.
And if and it all comes down to numbers, doesn't if enough people do this, it has an impact. It's numbers that count. You haven't got to work too hard. You haven't got to do scary things. It's enough people standing up to say no and challenging the people that have got power to some extent in their hands. But Lou, I'm watching the clock and I got to push you here, right? You've done all you've done. You've stood up to be counted. I know you're pretty gutsy and you're not afraid to call spade a spade and to challenge people. What would you say to other women? How would you encourage other women to stand up and show
Look at
some
your
guts?
children and your grandchildren or your nieces and your nephews. And if you don't stand up, it's going to fall back on them. It really will. Everyone has to do something. This is really, really dangerous. You know, I've dealt with the whole paedophilia issue for so many years, which I never thought I'd touch. I mean, I'd never done. I just would have people on the show and get their stories out, and I'd read letters and I'd go down rabbit holes. I've never experienced anything abusive ever. And we've got, what kind of a society are we if we can't look after our most precious? And this is happening every single day. Every single day. Listen to some of the stories that John Wedger used to tell. Look at some of the stories that Bill Maloney would tell. I mean, this is horrific, and that's happening in our country. And now we've got illegal immigrants coming in who are, you know, there's been so many reports of girls being attacked and followed, and we've got to look after our children. And your motivation should be to look at your children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, and what do you want for them for the future? Do you want them being sexualized by the age of 11, 12, by the age of 9, really? You know, is that what you want? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So that's what you've got to say to women. As a gutsy woman yourself, what have you got to say to
Get
the
up
men?
off your backsides and support your women. Do what men are meant to be doing. They're there. They are the protectors of the family. You protect your children. Stand up and do something. There are some good, really, really great guys starting to wake up now. Aaron and Gareth and Paul. There's so many. Jason. There are a lot, but there's not enough. Like, dads, get down to the schools. Ask questions. Where's the reading material coming from? You know, these reading materials that are coming into the school are from big organizations that have had money thrown them from, like, hedge funds and lobbying to get this agenda in. You dads, you've got to do your job. That's it. Do your job,
Great.
fathers.
Yeah, well done, Lou. I'm going to say, Lou, I'm really pleased I met you all
Same.
those years ago. I got a lot of admiration for what you've been doing. I've been really pleased. Well, I was really pleased when you said you'd come and do this interview tonight because we've never
Never.
done this together in this way before. So I thought you were a prime candidate
Thank
as a
you.
gutsy woman. It's been really great
Well, you
talking
made
to
me
you.
this Gutsy. If it wasn't
And
for you and everything I've learned from you, how to read everything I've learned from you and Ian, and I'm really lucky. I am so lucky. I mean, who better could you have as like mentors? Brian Gerrish and Ian.
well, Mrs. Gerrish might have some things to say about that one, Lou, but that's a discussion for another day. Lou, it's been great talking to you. Thank you very much for coming on. This interview will go out, excuse me, in the Christmas period at some stage. There'll be no particular order that I put these interviews out, but I think it's going to be a success. I'm really pleased to give the ladies concerned some acknowledgement and exposure so that other people can hear what you have to say. And if it is a success, I think I'm going to keep the series going because if there's a shortage of blokes who will stand up and be counted, there doesn't seem to be a shortage of women. Let's leave it there. Lou,
Can
thank
I
you for
just plug? We're not on YouTube. We are really, really censored, unbelievably. So we are on iTunes. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're on Rumble. Just check us out, libertytactics.co.uk. We're just trying to get the word out. That's all we're interested in.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, Lou. And if somebody wants to support you and make a donation, how do they do that?
They can go to libertytactics.co.uk. As I say, we haven't got a PayPal. There is a little buy me the coffee, or if anyone's generous enough, they want to donate direct to us, there is the bank account number that people can do it. But it's all about the information. That's really all it's about. You don't go into this to earn a living as such. It's something embedded, I think. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Lou,
thank you.
brilliant. Thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you, and God bless.